Former President Donald Trump may have thought a few tweets would go unanswered, but Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett responded with a $100 million defamation lawsuit that's now shaking up Washington. It all began with 3 early morning posts from Trump's official X account. Just after 6:00 a.m. on a Thursday, the former president directly named Congresswoman Crockett, accusing her of unethical financial behavior, foreign influence, and misusing campaign funds for personal benefit. The tone was pointed and unmistakably personal. One tweet read, "Jasmine Crockett is a fraud. Bought and paid for. Look into her foreign money ties. Unbelievable what she's getting away with. No one's talking about it." What made the incident especially jarring was the complete absence of prior public tension or supporting evidence. Trump's accusations, broadcast to over 90 million followers, were unverified and unsupported by any formal investigation. Within the hour, hashtags like #Crockett exposed and Trump targets women began trending, reflecting polarized reactions. Major news outlets picked up the tweets immediately. Right-leaning platforms echoed Trump's claims, while progressive commentators rallied behind Crockett. Many interpreted the posts as retaliation. Just days earlier, Crockett had gained national attention for pressing a Trump-aligned witness during a congressional hearing on campaign finance. Inside Crockett's team, the atmosphere quickly shifted. Confusion turned to alarm as threatening messages poured in. One email, later submitted as court evidence, warned her to watch her back and accused her of stealing from taxpayers. Capitol Police were notified, her digital security was reinforced, and a town hall event was canceled out of safety concerns. Legal analysts on MSNBC called it a digital bullhorn aimed at a sitting member of Congress, with real-world consequences. Fellow Democrats criticized Trump's remarks as reckless and dangerous. But Trump doubled down later that evening, posting, "Crockett is part of the problem, corrupt, weak, owned. I said what I said. Will the media investigate her?" With no evidence, no investigation, and no retraction from Trump, Crockett took action. Not with a statement, but by preparing to sue. The impact of Trump's tweets was immediate and deeply personal. Crockett's office became overwhelmed as staff fielded angry messages quoting the president verbatim. Claims that she was a foreign agent and threats like a voicemail stating "traitor, you'll get what's coming" escalated concerns. By midday, Capitol Police were again contacted and her security was enhanced. The wave of hate echoed across multiple platforms, raised concerns at the highest levels of congressional safety. At her Dallas district office, phones rang incessantly. Aides faced verbal abuse, accused of shielding a criminal. Online, Crockett's past photos were twisted into conspiracy theories and reposted with inflammatory hashtags. False claims that she was under federal investigation went viral, creating a chaotic digital narrative. Even her family wasn't spared. Her mother received a threatening letter accusing Jasmine of betraying the country and warning she would pay for what she's done. By nightfall, Crockett's legal team was documenting everything. Screenshots, voicemails, messages, carefully building a timeline of the harassment. One particularly concerning moment came when her D.C. apartment's address was shared under one of Trump's tweets, prompting a temporary relocation on the advice of her security team. While some younger lawmakers expressed solidarity and worry for their own safety, many Republicans remained silent, a silence Crockett would later describe as revealing. For 36 hours she stayed off social media entirely. As she reportedly told her chief of staff, "Posting won't protect me. I need something that will." That something was legal action. Her team understood that public outrage would fade, but a lawsuit could keep the facts in focus. The breaking point came when an aide burst into tears after receiving an email with doctored images meant to intimidate and humiliate Crockett. By Friday afternoon, her attorneys had drafted the core of a defamation suit, logging each tweet and every threat. The case centered on this: the former president knowingly published damaging falsehoods with reckless disregard for the truth, creating serious personal and professional consequences. As Crockett put it to her legal counsel, "Trump had used his words to put a target on my back, and I won't let that stand." Her response was about principle and personal safety. she wasn't waiting for someone else to defend her. On Saturday morning, after 2 days of silence, Congresswoman Crockett stepped forward. Accompanied by her attorneys and 2 colleagues, she addressed reporters at a packed press conference in Washington, D.C. Speaking calmly and firmly, she said, "Let me be clear. The President of the United States used his platform to spread dangerous, malicious lies about me. Those lies have threatened my life, my team, and my family, and I will not stay silent." She detailed the timeline of events, the initial tweets, the threats, the canceled events, and law enforcement's involvement, sticking strictly to verified facts. "I've devoted my career to public service, to fighting for justice and transparency," she said. What the president did wasn't just reckless, it was a personal attack disguised as politics. Looking into the cameras, she closed with, "And now he's going to be held accountable." Her lead attorney confirmed the filing of a federal civil defamation suit that morning. The complaint charged that Trump had knowingly issued false, harmful statements that incited real-world threats. Crucially, it argued that his posts were not personal opinions, but factual assertions from one of the world's most influential political figures, meeting the legal standard for actual malice. The press conference, just over 17 minutes long, concluded without Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett taking any questions. Still, her remarks quickly gained traction. By that afternoon, her statement aired across all major networks. MSNBC broadcasted the full conference. CNN featured legal analysis on the lawsuit's merits, and even Fox News ran a measured segment, noting the absence of evidence in the tweets and the legal risk Trump could face. Crockett's team also began receiving support from unexpected quarters, former federal prosecutors, civil rights attorneys, and even a few GOP legal experts privately recognized the strength of her case. Online discourse began to shift. While some Trump supporters doubled down, a significant number of moderates and independents questioned the logic behind targeting a relatively new lawmaker with unproven claims. Prominent figures joined the conversation. Hillary Clinton wrote, "No woman, especially a member of Congress, should face this level of abuse. I support Jasmine Crockett." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reposted Crockett's remarks, stating, "This isn't just defamation, it's an abuse of power." Perhaps most notably, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski told reporters, "This is beneath the office. Attacks like these on elected officials do nothing for the country. They only deepen division." The lawsuit itself drew wide media attention. The legal filing included screenshots of Trump's tweets, records of threats and harassment, and expert testimony from digital analysts tracing the online surge in abuse back to moments after Trump's posts. The documentation outlined a clear sequence, Trump's statements followed by a measurable spike in hostility. Yet Crockett kept a low profile, limiting her appearances to one NPR interview. "This isn't about media coverage," she said. "It's about safety, about integrity, and about ensuring that even presidents are accountable for their words." Her tone was calm, her message focused, and the interview quickly gained traction for its restraint. At a time when politics often rewards confrontation, Crockett's steady, deliberate approach stood out. She hadn't lashed out, she had gone to court. For the first time since the tweets, the public focus had shifted from what Trump said to how Crockett was responding. The lawsuit, filed Saturday at 8:07 a.m. in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, ran 42 detailed pages. It named Donald J. Trump as the sole defendant, in his capacity as president, and focused on defamation with actual malice. The 3 tweets cited accused Crockett of criminal conduct, foreign ties, and financial impropriety, claims the lawsuit stated were knowingly false, unsubstantiated, and shared with intent to harm. The complaint laid out a comprehensive timeline linking Trump's tweets to a wave of targeted threats. Evidence included screenshots, server logs, and data tracing, the coordinated abuse to far-right groups that amplified Trump's messaging almost instantly. The legal case rested on 3 key arguments. False statements of fact. Trump's tweets made direct claims of wrongdoing, not opinions, and were shown to be false and unsupported by any formal investigation. Reckless disregard for truth. No evidence was provided. and the lawsuit highlighted that no agency had flagged Crockett's finances or campaign activity. Intent to harm. The nature, timing, and directness of the tweets suggested they were personally motivated, aimed at discrediting a lawmaker who had recently challenged one of Trump's allies during a televised hearing. Supporting documentation included staff declarations, Capitol Police reports, security reviews, and constituent threats. Such as, "You think you're safe just because you're in Congress? Think again." The goal was to show that Trump's words triggered not just criticism but real and predictable threats. Anticipating a defense of presidential immunity, Crockett's team argued that the tweets were not tied to any official role but were personal attacks, falling outside presidential duties. While the legal terrain on this is uncertain, the team was prepared to argue that publicly defaming a fellow lawmaker with unfounded claims isn't part of a president's job description. The $100 million in damages requested reflected more than personal harm. According to her attorneys, it aimed to set a precedent that influential public figures cannot use their platforms to launch baseless attacks on political opponents without accountability. As court records became public, legal experts weighed in. Former federal prosecutor Joyce Vance described the complaint as carefully constructed and compelling. A legal analyst on PBS remarked, "This isn't performance, it's precision." Marcus Callahan, Crockett's lead attorney, said they were open to trial or settlement, but emphasized the lawsuit's core aim: accountability, not spectacle. The White House issued a short statement. "The president will respond through appropriate legal channels. These claims lack merit." Notably, there was no apology, retraction, or removal of the original tweets, which were still live as of Sunday morning. Observers pointed out that keeping the posts up could weaken any claim that Trump underestimated their impact. Crockett's attorneys added screenshots from the weekend, showing the tweets still being reshared and used to justify ongoing harassment. Political news outlets covered the developments closely, debating the potential for this case to influence how courts address digital defamation from high-ranking officials. By Monday morning, just 72 hours after the initial filing, new documents circulated through legal networks. Crockett's team submitted additional evidence, expanding the case's scope. Central to this was a second-by-second timeline tracking Trump's tweets to the immediate backlash that followed. According to timestamped logs, the first hostile message directed at Crockett appeared just 9 minutes after Trump's post. The intensity grew quickly. A forensic team hired by her attorneys provided a breakdown. First hour, over 600 mentions pairing Crockett's name with terms like traitor, corrupt, or foreign agent. First 24 hours, over 23,000 hostile mentions across X, Facebook, YouTube, and private messaging platforms. Within 48 hours, a breach attempt on her personal email, never publicly listed, was traced to a foreign IP address. Each threat was archived, categorized, and evaluated. The legal argument was clear. This wasn't theoretical harm. It was a chain reaction initiated by the president's online statements. Among the most disturbing exhibits was an audio file of a voicemail left on a staffer's phone. The caller accused Crockett of betraying the country and warned she would be dealt with the way patriots used to deal with traitors. The message concluded with a direct threat: "You think we won't find you? We will." Additional evidence included far-right forum posts, some encouraging users to dox Crockett or confront her in public. One altered image showed her face overlaid with a target. Another listed her district and urged patriots in Texas to act. Crockett's team also provided physical evidence, including police reports from D.C. and Dallas. One envelope intercepted by staff contained her photo marked with red ink and a note that read, "Fake your smile now. We're watching." Aides submitted sworn declarations detailing the toll on daily operations. For 2 business days, constituent services halted as staff focused solely on security. A cybersecurity expert monitoring her online activity noted a sharp spike in threats precisely following Trump's tweets, concluding, "This volume and timing cannot be coincidental. It's directly tied to the posts." To refute Trump's claims, Crockett's team attached FEC documents confirming no campaign finance violations. alongside her full financial disclosures and tax records. The message was direct. Not only were the accusations false, they triggered a sustained, traceable campaign of harassment. Legal analysts took notice. Constitutional lawyer Kimberly Ackenstor said on MSNBC, "This case could set an important precedent on digital defamation and executive accountability." The president remained publicly silent. No statements, no press briefings, no social media responses. But the case gained visibility as new evidence was submitted daily. Inside the courtroom, the file now included voice messages, threat assessments, and forensic reports. Outside, public awareness of the scope and seriousness of the situation continued to grow. With each document, the foundation of Crockett's case strengthened. This was no longer a political spat. It had become a serious legal reckoning. By midweek, what began as a defense of personal reputation had evolved into a broader moment of national attention. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's lawsuit was no longer just about defamation, it was about accountability, precedent, and the consequences of unchecked influence. Inside the Capitol, the mood shifted significantly. In a rare show of bipartisan unity, several Democratic and independent lawmakers joined Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett outside the Rayburn House Office building, delivering brief but firm messages of support. Representative Ayanna Pressley remarked, "This isn't about partisanship, it's about truth, safety, and the abuse of authority." Jasmine was clearly targeted. Standing alongside her were Representatives Jamie Raskin, Ilhan Omar, and Ro Khanna, each warning that allowing unchecked digital attacks from the president could normalize dangerous behavior. Raskin referred to the case as a constitutional test of executive power over speech, while Omar described it as a form of political violence carried out through character destruction. Beyond Capitol Hill, national organizations quickly rallied behind Crockett. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund praised her decision to take legal action and noted a concerning pattern of the president targeting outspoken black women in government. The National Council of Negro Women and Emily's List also voiced strong support, with Emily's List offering media and grassroots outreach assistance. Jasmine Crockett isn't just defending herself, she's representing every woman who's ever been told to stay silent, their statement read. Legal scholars and policy institutes also joined the conversation. The Brennan Center for Justice released a legal review outlining the broader implications of the case, suggesting it could establish new legal precedent regarding misuse of digital platforms by public officials. On university campuses, student organizations hosted forums on free speech and online harm, with Crockett's case central to the discussion. At Howard University, law students debated its constitutional impact. One student commented, "This isn't a hypothetical, this is a sitting lawmaker facing real threats after speaking up." Social media activity reflected a similar shift. Hashtags like #TronCrockettExposed and #Crockett is corrupt were repurposed by her supporters, who replaced misinformation with clips from her speeches, articles on the lawsuit, and public messages of encouragement. New tags like "Tron We Stand with Jasmine" and "Protect Black Women in Office" began trending, especially among civic advocates. Cultural figures also weighed in. Viola Davis posted, "This is the cost of speaking truth in public. I support Jasmine Crockett." Taraji P. Henson shared Crockett's NPR interview, calling it "courage, grace, strength." Former First Lady Michelle Obama added her voice on Instagram, "When power is used to intimidate rather than serve, we must speak up." I'm proud of Congresswoman Crockett for holding her ground. Her message was shared widely, gaining millions of views within a day. Meanwhile, Crockett herself kept a low online profile, tweeting only once, "I see you. I hear you. I appreciate every one of you." Her team confirmed that this was intentional. They wanted the legal filing to remain the focal point. According to her press secretary, Crockett was reviewing additional evidence and preparing for the next legal stage. Her office expanded its capacity to handle a growing number of letters and messages, many from constituents and public figures thanking her for taking a stand. Though still early in the legal process and with no formal response yet from the president, one fact was clear: Crockett was not alone. Her case had sparked a national dialogue about power, accountability, and how public officials should be held to standards of integrity, even on social media. With every voice joining her cause, the strength of her position in both the courtroom and the public sphere continued to grow. While public support swelled for Congresswoman Crockett, the White House remained conspicuously quiet. Despite increased media scrutiny and the lawsuit leading national news cycles, President Trump refrained from directly addressing the matter. There were no press appearances, statements, or clarifications. The original tweets that initiated the controversy remained live, unaltered, and unacknowledged. According to insiders familiar with internal discussions, this silence was intentional. White House advisors were reportedly split. Some of Trump's political strategists urged him to label the suit a partisan attack and present it as a free speech issue. Others, especially those with legal backgrounds, were more cautious. Sources close to the legal team revealed growing concern, not just over the allegations but over the volume and depth of evidence. Reports of audio threats, forensic analyses, and police involvement made it difficult to dismiss the complaint as political noise. One internal legal memo reportedly warned, "There's no precedent for a defamation suit of this scale against a sitting president, but the legal risk is real." White House communications staff, typically involved in managing Trump's online messaging, were unprepared for the backlash. Initially expecting the story to fade, they were soon overwhelmed by its staying power. By midweek, Press Secretary Lisa Michaels was asked about the issue. Her response: "The president has no comment at this time. We trust the matter will proceed through proper legal channels." When asked if Trump still stood by his tweets, Michaels added only, "The president is entitled to share his views under the Constitution. I have nothing further to add." Behind the scenes, concerns were rising. Aides were bracing for a possible legal escalation: subpoenas, depositions, or requests for internal records. The primary worry wasn't necessarily a courtroom loss, but the risk of exposing private communications or revealing who had helped craft the posts. Questions about whether Trump acted alone or with staff input began circulating within the administration. At the same time, conservative media outlets began shifting. Far-right commentators defended Trump, but more traditional voices expressed unease. Fox News host Brett Baier ran a segment examining the lawsuit's legal foundations, stating, "This case won't disappear quickly. It's specific and backed by documentation." The Wall Street Journal published an editorial urging the administration to treat the situation seriously and warned against downplaying the risks of publicly attacking a fellow public servant without evidence. In Congress, Trump's allies largely avoided the topic. While a few dismissed the case, key GOP figures offered no public comment, a silence that spoke volumes. In legal discussions, presidential immunity emerged as a likely defense, but it was far from certain. Historically, the Department of Justice has defended presidents against civil suits tied to official duties. Yet, Crockett's case hinges on whether Trump's tweets were official statements or personal attacks. This legal gray area unsettled even experienced advisors. Crockett's legal team viewed the silence as reinforcing their argument. Her attorney, Marcus Callahan, told reporters, "If there was proof, it would have been shared. If there was a defense, it would have been stated." The silence speaks for itself. By week's end, the lawsuit had evolved from a legal filing to a broader national moment. The White House's strategy of avoidance had only magnified the issue. As momentum built, the lawsuit dominated political coverage across all major outlets. Jasmine Crockett's defamation case became a headline topic across television, digital platforms, podcasts, and weekend news panels. The conversation had clearly shifted. This was no longer seen as a partisan squabble. It was a test of legal boundaries, digital responsibility, and institutional power. CNN ran a full evening program dedicated to the case, with Abby Phillip interviewing legal scholars, speech rights advocates, and former Capitol staffers. "We're watching a president accuse a sitting lawmaker of crimes with no evidence. That's not standard political debate, it's a reputational attack," Phillip noted. Over on MSNBC, Joy Reid broke down the language and timing of the tweets, linking them to the surge in online hostility Crockett received. Crockett's lawyer Marcus Callahan appeared live to reinforce the central point. This isn't about political disagreement, it's about using power recklessly to cause harm. That's not protected speech, that's calculated defamation. Even conservative media began to take notice. While some commentators defended the president, legal experts on Fox News took a more cautious approach. Former judge and contributor Andrew Napolitano said, "If the president had simply criticized her politics, that would be protected speech, but accusing someone of being a criminal, aligned with foreign agents, and stealing money without evidence, crosses into potentially defamatory territory. If those claims led to threats or harm, it strengthens her argument." Print outlets echoed this sentiment. The New York Times ran a front-page piece titled, "Can a President Be Sued for Online Lies?" comparing similar cases but emphasizing how Crockett stood out due to the evidence and clear link to personal risk. The Washington Post profiled Crockett as a thoughtful legislator, respected on the Hill long before the controversy. The article highlighted her past as a civil rights attorney and her consistent push for transparency in congressional finances, ironically contradicting the very claims Trump made. Politico and Axios focused on growing discomfort inside the White House, quoting unnamed staff who admitted they hadn't anticipated such a forceful response or the level of public backing. One aide said, "We underestimated how serious this could get. Now we just hope it doesn't become a lasting election year narrative." Online platforms accelerated the story. BuzzFeed News published an explainer on the lawsuit, aimed at younger audiences, outlining what defamation means and why this case matters. Vice ran a feature titled "When Tweets Cross the Line: The Legal Stakes of Crockett, Trump," both reaching millions within days. More importantly, the case was reframing how people talked about digital accountability. Podcasts like Pod Save America and The Daily devoted full episodes to its legal and political implications. Civic tech groups hosted live streams on social media ethics and the abuse of digital platforms. Amid the surge in visibility, Crockett avoided spectacle. She didn't launch merchandise, stage rallies, or offer fiery soundbites. Her restraint became part of the story. She gave just 2 interviews, one to NPR and one to PBS, focused on policy, not personal attacks. In both, she emphasized, "This isn't about ego, it's about safety, truth, and holding people in power accountable when their words cause harm." That message resonated, particularly among women leaders who had faced similar online abuse. Behind closed doors, lawmakers began discussing the need for stronger protections against digital defamation and harassment targeting elected officials. Meanwhile, Trump remained silent. He still hadn't addressed the lawsuit, and the original tweets were still visible, unchanged and without context. Each day of silence drew more criticism, as opponents pointed out the absence of any defense or clarification. Public opinion, once sharply divided, began to shift. Even some of Trump's supporters acknowledged that this time, he may have gone too far. What began as an online accusation had become a broader conversation about responsibility, speech, and the limits of power. Crockett hadn't sought the fight, but once it came, she responded with facts and the law, and the country took notice. As the case gained national attention, Capitol Hill became a center of legal and political friction. President Trump's tweets targeting Jasmine Crockett had triggered reactions beyond courtrooms and newsrooms, now dividing political allies, donors, advocacy groups, and voters. Among Democrats, the response was united. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries released a formal statement calling the president's posts an abuse of power and a violation of congressional integrity. He added, "Congresswoman Crockett is demonstrating real leadership. She's not just defending herself, she's defending democratic principles." The Congressional Black Caucus, where Crockett holds a prominent role, issued a strongly worded letter condemning Trump's actions. Signed by all 58 members, the letter demanded a public retraction and apology for the false claims and the danger they had caused. Representative Barbara Lee read the statement aloud on the House floor. Senate Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and Raphael Warnock, publicly supported the lawsuit. Even moderate voices like Senator Joe Manchin raised concerns, not about the $100 million claim, but about the tone of political discourse. "We've crossed a line in how we treat one another," he said. On the Republican side, reactions were more mixed and more revealing. Trump's staunchest allies reacted as expected. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene dismissed the lawsuit as a leftist stunt, accusing Crockett of playing the victim. Senator J.D. Vance said on social media, "Politics is tough. If she can't take criticism, maybe she's in the wrong field." But not all Republicans echoed those sentiments. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell declined to comment, saying only, "Let the courts handle that." His reluctance to weigh in was notable given his usual willingness to defend party leadership. Some Republicans even broke ranks. Senator Lisa Murkowski, known for her independence, said, "I don't know what the president hoped to achieve, but his tweets were harmful and unhelpful." Representative Nancy Mace, a moderate Republican, told a local radio station, "Baseless accusations, especially when they result in threats, are unacceptable. We're here to debate policy, not attack each other online." Though limited in number, these dissenting voices carried symbolic weight. The case had evolved from a legal filing into a moral test. How would elected officials respond when a member of their own institution was publicly targeted? The political ramifications extended to donors as well. Some of Trump's major financial backers reportedly voiced concern over the potential fallout, particularly with suburban voters. One anonymous GOP donor told Politico, "We're losing ground with women voters. Incidents like this don't help, they're careless." On the other hand, Crockett's campaign saw a significant boost. Political action committees supporting women in politics used her story in fundraising appeals. Within 4 days of filing the lawsuit, her team reported a surge in donations and new volunteer sign-ups, particularly from younger women. The most telling development, however, was the growing anxiety among younger members of Congress. A bipartisan group of first-term representatives, many active on social media, expressed concern that digital attacks like the one against Crockett could become routine. One freshman Republican told The Hill, "We saw what happened to her. Any of us could be next. There's no line anymore." The political atmosphere was already tense, but Crockett's case, because of its evidence, tone, and legal grounding, struck a chord. It wasn't about performance or posturing. It was a demand for accountability, presented through the legal system, not a press conference. That made it harder for critics to ignore. For Trump, the consequences weren't just legal, they were political. His usual defenders were hesitant, and many couldn't back him without evidence, which hadn't been provided. For the first time in a while, a legal challenge wasn't met with outrage or spectacle, but with composure, documentation, and quiet persistence. The response drew a line, and not everyone stood behind the president. By the end of the second week, a shift was clearly underway, not just in the legal system, but in public sentiment. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's defamation lawsuit against President Trump had grown beyond headlines. It was becoming a national conversation. Across the U.S., people weren't simply following the story as political observers. They were reflecting on what it means when a president uses his platform to target an elected official without presenting any evidence. Polling data confirmed the change in tone. A Reuters Ipsos poll released 10 days after the lawsuit showed that 62% of Americans believed the president had gone too far. Among independents, that number rose to 69%, signaling that concern extended well beyond partisan boundaries. Even 28% of Republicans said they were uneasy with the president's tweets and wished he would dial it back. Meanwhile, Crockett's approval numbers rose, especially in urban and suburban districts where professional women and younger voters hold influence. Her team reported a 36% spike in traffic to her official site, along with thousands of messages of encouragement, many from people who hadn't known much about her prior to the case. These weren't political insiders, they were teachers, veterans, small business owners, and nurses who appreciated her steady, no-drama approach. Her tone, measured, consistent, and grounded in fact, stood out in a political atmosphere fatigued by outrage. One message from a 56-year-old postal worker in Ohio shared with permission read, You didn't yell, you didn't grandstand, you just said that's not true, and went to court. That's real leadership. The tone across social media platforms also began to change. On TikTok, creators produced videos explaining the lawsuit, many of them applauding Crockett's calm demeanor and the detailed legal case her team had built. One video titled "How to Stand Up with Evidence" garnered 3 million views in just 2 days. Another viral clip combined Trump's tweets with Crockett's press conference, captioned simply, "He ranted." She responded legally. On X, formerly Twitter, the platform where it all began, the initial storm of threats and memes began to fade as supporters posted court filings, fact checks, and personal stories of harassment. Civil rights advocates linked the lawsuit to broader issues of online abuse, especially against Black women. A hashtag campaign, "Protect Her Seat," quickly spread, profiling women lawmakers from across the political spectrum and placing Crockett at the center of a push for accountability from both public figures and the platforms enabling toxic discourse. Local communities also took action. Church congregations, student groups, and civic associations organized discussions to explore the implications of the case. In Atlanta, a forum titled "Free Speech or Targeted Harm" brought together attorneys, activists, and academics to examine how digital hostility can escalate into real-world danger, a concern that Crockett's lawsuit had starkly illuminated. Through all of this, Crockett maintained a limited public presence. Her few appearances were intentional and focused. During a CNN interview, when asked how the attention had impacted her, she replied, "I'm not looking to be a celebrity plaintiff. I just want the truth out there. And to stay safe. That's all." That quote resonated widely, especially among women in leadership who had faced similar online attacks. Inside the Capitol, discussions quietly began among lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans alike, about the need for better safeguards against digital harassment and clearer guidelines on defamatory conduct targeting sitting members of Congress. Meanwhile, President Trump remained silent. He still hadn't publicly responded to the lawsuit. The tweets that triggered the controversy were still visible and unedited. Yet each day without a reply drew more criticism. Many viewed the silence as a missed opportunity to explain or defend the original claims. Public opinion, which had once been sharply divided, was now showing signs of rare consensus. Even some Trump supporters conceded that this incident had crossed a line. They were watching closely to see how the legal and political fallout would unfold. What began as an online accusation had now become a national conversation about responsibility, credibility, and the boundaries of unchecked speech, especially from someone in the highest office. Congresswoman Crockett hadn't sought this legal battle, but when confronted with false claims, she didn't escalate the drama. She built a case. Her approach relied not on spectacle, but on documentation, discipline, and the rule of law. And across the country, people noticed.